So joining us now in an exclusive interview is Palmer Luckey, Anduril founder, and before that, the founder of VR company Oculus, which was sold to Facebook in 2014. Palmer, it's great to have you back on the show. And I mention that because in some ways this feels like full circle. I was very surprised to find out that with a $22 billion production contract, IVAS represents the second largest investment in virtual reality ever, behind Meta, which we know made their investments off of the products that you first made more than a decade ago. Your thoughts on what happens next, what this means to take over this contract?
Well, you're right that it's a return to form for me in more ways than one. I started Oculus VR and sold that to Meta before, and I was there for a few years before they fired me. But even before that, as a teenager, I worked at the USC ICT Mixed Reality Lab at an Army project called BraveMind that used virtual reality exposure therapy to treat Army veterans with PTSD. And that was really the first time I was exposed to how government technology procurement and development can be done and deployed. And it's definitely something that's stuck with me for a really long time. It's also interesting that, some people said that Meta acquired Oculus, but given that they've spent, what is this? Is $60 billion, $100 billion? They've in a way, Oculus kind of sort of took over their company. But for me, this is a really exciting moment. The idea of putting a heads-up display and a radio and a computer on a soldier is an old one. It's been around since Robert Heinlein's novel Starship Troopers in 1959 at least. And Anduril's been building a lot of the tools that actually make something like that useful. The AI platform that integrates data from all of our sensors, all of our weapons, over 100 existing DoD platforms into a model of the battle space in real time. That's what you really need to make something like this as powerful of a tool as it should be. Not just the ability to see, the thermal spectrum and the visible spectrum and the near IR spectrum, but the ability to see into a digital model of the past, present, and future, and to seamlessly team with large packs of autonomous weapons.
What does this do? And Anduril's been growing gangbusters for a number of years now. You've made acquisitions, just recently announced that you're going to build this super factory, for lack of a better term, in Ohio as well. What does adding this contract and everything that goes along with it into the mix do to further expand Anduril?
Well, Anduril builds a lot of different systems across a lot of different domains. So air, land, sea, subsea, space, cyberspace, eventually subterranean. And IVAS and systems like it are going to be the portal through which the warfighter commands and controls all of these different autonomous weapons, autonomous sensors. That really gets you to a much greater than 1-to-1 ratio of fighter to system. And I think that by giving people these types of systems, augmenting their view of the real world so that they can share data seamlessly with these robotic systems, so that they can all be working off one common shared view of the world, you can be a lot more effective, a lot more lethal, and keep yourself a lot safer than you would if you're working with the unaided eye, the unaided ear, the unaided mind.
This comes as, and I reported on this last week on Friday, but reported that you're raising a Series G up to $2.5 billion. That would double Anduril's valuation to $28 billion pre-money. What can you tell us about that and how this builds on that momentum?
Well, lots of people report lots of things. When we have something to announce on doing a raise, I'd be down to talk about it. But you're right, Anduril's had a lot of traction. We've been winning major fighter jet contracts, major submarine contracts. Now with this, we can continue my vision of augmenting the human form to surpass the limitations of our visual and cognitive systems. I'm one of those crazy people who believes we're going to spend all of our lives, or at least a large chunk of our lives, looking at the world through, whether you call it AR, VR, augmediated reality, wherever you want to call that continuum. I'm a believer that we're going to mediate our view of the world with technology, and this is a powerful step towards doing it for the military first. Eventually, that's going to come to everyone. But I think that the really important thing here is we're expanding into an area that is directly built on top of human warfighters. We've mostly focused on building robots, robotics, things that are unmanned. We've actually had a warfighter systems business line for a few years now that we've never talked about publicly. And we're going to be rolling into our warfighter systems division, which I've been leading on the technological development side, kind of focusing on human augmentation, human performance, and what the future of that looks like.